Imagine a minor headache, a common, everyday annoyance. You reach for the world's most trusted brand, swallow 2 capsules, and wait for relief. But in Chicago, 1982, that relief never came. Instead, the recipe for a household staple had been swapped for a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. Have you ever stopped to check the seal on your medicine today? Well, you will thank this case for that habit. Think about your morning routine. You wake up, maybe you have a slight ache in your joints or a tickle in your throat. You go to your kitchen, open a cabinet, and reach for a bottle of Extra-Strength Tylenol. It's the most trusted brand in America. You don't even look at the cap. You don't check the seal, because in 1982, those seals didn't even exist. You swallow 2 capsules, thinking relief is on the way. But for 7 people in Chicago, that simple act was a death sentence.
Welcome back to the Recipe for Crime. This is my private archive, the cases that were too dark for the dining room and too strange for the evening news. Today we're opening a new folder in the secret files. Put down your fork, listen closely, and let's find out what's really cooking in the shadow.
Today, we are breaking down a case so chilling it changed the way every single person on Earth buys food and medicine. We're going back to the fall of 1982, to a series of murders that had no motive, no logic, and, to this day, no convicted killer. Before we dive into the first victim, I want to ask you, what is the one household item you trust so much you never check it? Let me know in the comments. Our recipe begins on a gray Wednesday morning, September 29, 1982, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. 12-year-old Mary Kellerman woke up feeling under the weather. She had a minor head cold or runny nose, nothing a little medicine couldn't fix. Her parents, doing what any loving parents would do, gave her 1 capsule of Extra-Strength Tylenol. By 7 a.m., Mary was found collapsed on the bathroom floor. By 9 a.m., she was gone. The doctors were stunned. A healthy 12-year-old doesn't just drop dead from a cold. At first, they suspected a rare stroke or an undiagnosed heart defect. They had no idea that at that very moment, across the city, the ingredients of a nightmare were already being consumed by others. If you were in that hospital room, would you have ever looked at a bottle of aspirin as a murder weapon? While the Kellerman family was reeling, the nightmare moved to Arlington Heights. 27-year-old Adam Janus, a postal worker, was at home when he suddenly collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought to save him, but he died shortly after arrival. The family was devastated. That evening, Stanley, Adam's brother, and his wife, Teresa, gathered at Adam's house to mourn and make funeral arrangements. The stress was unbearable. Both Stanley and Teresa developed pounding headaches. They saw a bottle of Tylenol sitting on Adam's kitchen counter, the same bottle Adam had used earlier that morning. They each took a dose. Within minutes, Stanley slumped over. Teresa followed. In one single day, 3 members of the same family were dead in the same house. The police were baffled. They thought it was a gas leak. They thought it was a strange viral outbreak. But then, a sharp-eyed firefighter named Richard Keyworth and a nurse named Helen Jensen noticed something. They found the Tylenol bottles. They opened them, and they smelled it. A faint, sweet scent of bitter almonds. Does that smell ring a bell to you? In the world of true crime, that scent only means one thing: cyanide. Once the connection was made to the Tylenol bottles, the Chicago police and the FBI moved with a speed rarely seen in the 1980s. They gathered the bottles from the Kellerman and Janus homes and rushed them to the lab. What they found was a masterpiece of malice. The killer hadn't just dumped poison into a vat at a factory. No, this was a manual, painstaking process. The perpetrator had purchased bottles from at least 6 different drugstores and supermarkets across the Chicago suburbs. They had taken them home, carefully pulled apart the gelatin capsules, replaced the white medicinal powder with lethal potassium cyanide, and then, chillingly, placed those bottles back on the store shelves. Think about the coldness of that act for a moment. The killer didn't know who would buy them. It could be a child, a grandmother, a young father. It was a lottery of death. When investigators looked at the capsules under the microscope, they saw that each one contained enough cyanide to kill a human being several times over. If you were an investigator in 1982, where would you even start looking for a killer who chose their victims at random? Write the answer in the comments, and let's discuss the story that changed the way we live forever. And always remember to subscribe, like, and share the video so we can become a bigger family. Now let's get back to the story. Just as the city was descending into a full-blown panic, with police driving through neighborhoods using bullhorns to warn people to throw away their Tylenol, a letter arrived at the headquarters of Johnson & Johnson. The letter was blunt. It demanded $1 million to stop the killing. It was signed by a man named James Lewis. The FBI immediately went into overdrive. They discovered Lewis was a man with a dark, twisted history. He had been a suspect in a gruesome 1978 murder in Kansas City, where the victim had been dismembered. He was a professional con man, a ghost who moved through the shadows. They eventually tracked him down to a library in New York City. But here is where the recipe for this crime gets complicated. Lewis admitted to writing the letter, but he denied committing the murders. He claimed he just wanted to embarrass his wife's former employer by leading the FBI to their bank account, and the math checked out. Lewis was in New York at the time the poisoned bottles were placed on shelves in Chicago. Do you think James Lewis was the real killer playing a clever game, or just a sick opportunist looking for a payday? The FBI began to look for what they called the shopper. This was a person who could walk into a Jewel Osco or a Walgreens, place a tainted bottle on a shelf, and walk out without looking suspicious. They reviewed thousands of hours of grainy surveillance footage. In one famous clip, they saw a bearded man standing in the background of a pharmacy aisle, watching a woman reach for a bottle of Tylenol. He doesn't move. He just watches. For years, investigators stared at that grainy face, wondering if they were looking at the most prolific random killer in American history. But the image was too blurry. The ingredient of identity was missing. Meanwhile, a man named Roger Arnold, who worked in a warehouse, became a prime suspect. He had a basement filled with chemicals and books on how to kill. He even reportedly told people he was the Tylenol killer. But again, there was no physical evidence, no fingerprints on the bottles, no DNA on the capsules. While the police were hunting ghosts, the company behind Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, was facing a nightmare of its own. In 1982, there was no playbook for this. They were losing $100 million. But they did something that changed corporate history forever. They chose people over profits. They issued a nationwide recall of 31 million bottles. They told the public, do not take this medicine. This was the first time a company had ever taken such a massive, transparent stand. They even offered to swap every bottle of capsules for the new solid caplets, which were harder to tamper with. If this happened today with a major food brand, do you think they would handle it as honestly as Johnson & Johnson did in 1982, or would they try to hide it? This tragedy is the reason your life looks different today. Before 1982, you could walk into a store, open a jar of pickles, taste it, and put it back. You could open a bottle of aspirin, take one, and no one would know. After Chicago, the recipe for packaging changed. The U.S. government passed the Tylenol bill, making product tampering a federal crime. The industry invented the triple seal, the outer plastic wrap, the child-proof cap, and that frustrating foil induction seal that we all struggle to peel off today. Every time you struggle to open a new bottle of medicine, you are seeing the direct legacy of the 7 people who died in Chicago. So, where does the case stand now? James Lewis, the primary extortion suspect, passed away in July 2023, taking whatever secrets he had to the grave. But the FBI hasn't given up. In recent years, they have used touch DNA technology, testing the actual capsules and bottles from 1982 for skin cells that couldn't be detected 40 years ago. They are looking for a ghost in the machine, a person who thought they got away with the perfect random crime. But in the world of forensics, the recipe always leaves a trace. We may be one lab result away from finally putting a name to the face of the Chicago killer. The Chicago Tylenol murders didn't just end lives, they ended our innocence as consumers. It taught us that danger isn't always in a dark alley. Sometimes it's sitting right there on the shelf in a bright red bottle. Who do you think did it? Was it James Lewis, a disgruntled worker, or someone the FBI has never even interviewed? Does knowing the dark history behind those foil seals make you feel safer, or does it remind you of how vulnerable we still are? Drop your best theory in the comments, and always remember to subscribe, like, and share the video. Thank you for watching. Stay safe until our next episode.